Hi everybody, welcome to the 5th lesson of Learn Revit API course. In this lesson, we're going to talk about pyRevit script anatomy. I'm going to prepare pyRevit templates for you, so you can use them in all your future tools, and you never have to start with a blank page. And also, to save time during this lesson, we'll also start with my existing templates, and I will break them down step by step, because in the end of the day, you probably will start with them anyway, and then slowly you will adjust them to your own needs. But I will also mention in the end pyRevit developers documentation where you can find even more information. Now, without further ado, let's actually jump straight into the code and I'm going to explain it. Well, in Revit, open the extension that you created in the previous lessons, and then you're going to find template pyRevit minimum. These are the two templates. I'm going to start with the minimum version because this one is an overkill. It also has a ton of comments because it was made for educational purpose. But this one is actually what I use. Alright, and in this template, the first line is UTF-8 encoding. And in Iron Python, we have to specifically declare that we want to use UTF-8 encoding. Because for example, if you would use some kind of German, Russian or non-standard ASCII characters, and you don't have this line right here, you'll notice that it's highlighted. If you're going to hover over, it's going to say that non-ASCII character U is in the file. And it's going to cause an error, and it's also going to give you a very weird error message, which is not very easy to debug, I think. So just to avoid this, always use this UTF-8 encoding, even if you're not using Russian, German or whatever characters you think of. Then the next is the title, and it's just the name of the button that you're gonna see in Revit UI. There's also a way to define different names for different Revit languages, but I'm gonna show it later. Then the doc is the description that you're gonna see in Revit when you're gonna hover over your buttons. For example, when I hover over this, you'll see there's a version, date, description, how to do, last updates, and author. And I really like to put all of this information because it's going to help your users understand, in short, what is this button doing, how to actually use it, and how to is a very important part. Because oftentimes you will have scripts where you're going to describe first select walls, then click on the button, select wall type, and then this happens. And without that, your users might not understand how to use it correctly. Also depends on what kind of tools you make. Last update's also nice, so you can keep track of what kind of changes did you make and what you want to also do in the future. Now, the next is imports. And in here, we just put our most used import so we don't have to write it over and over. And in pretty much every tool that you're going to make, you're going to write from Autodesk Revit DB import something. We probably need to import it in every single script. And also, don't bother to importing only the classes that you're actually going to use. Because even though people say, yes, it's going to execute faster, you will never notice this difference. Because we talk about fraction of a second. So just import everything and don't care. However, there are also other namespaces for other disciplines. For example, if I'm going to write Autodesk Revit DB, you'll notice there's structure, architecture, steel, events, analysis, electrical, there is also lighting, mechanical, and so on, so on, so on. And if you work in one of these disciplines, there's a good chance that you would need to import something from the structure. Like for example, structural type is very common when you create families. Maybe you want to import something from Autodesk Revit DB architecture, because I know there are classes like room, there's stairs, there's railings and all of this. If you often use these classes, then it makes sense. But if not, you don't have to make it part of your template. Just know that there are these namespaces from where more classes come. Then this one is actually very important, and I highly recommend you to keep it in all your templates. Because in Revit API documentation, you will often see that we need arguments which is iList or iCollection. And this means that we need to provide a typed list. And this is how we get it. We get it from system, collection, generic, import list. And the difference is that if you're going to create, for example, list of element IDs in Python, but also in the same Python list, we can add the integer, we can add our string, we can add maybe another list with numbers and so on. But what typed lists do is you can define element IDs, and you need to create a list where only element ID types can be inside. Then this is how you would create an empty list. And if you would have your element IDs, you could just take it and provide it here inside like this. Or you can use add method if you're, for example, in for loop and you want to add one by one by one. For example, this one will add one element. Okay, this is just an example. Just leave it here because oftentimes you would have to use it. Then there are variables. There are 3 common variables that you need. You need a doc, UI doc, and app. This one stands for the document and it represents your project. You would need it whenever you want to make changes in your project, when you want to get elements out of your project, or something related to this specific project. UI doc is all about Revit UI, And for example, this is common to use when you want to prompt user to select something or get user selection or something related to the user interface. And lastly, application relates to the Revit application itself. This is from where you can get Revit year version, maybe background color, and maybe where's the path to the shared parameter file, and this kind of application related parameters. But also, I highly recommend you to set the type hinting here, and you can do this in Python like this. You make a comment with type, and then you define the class. The reason you do that, because when you're going to use this variable, you definitely want to have some kind of autocomplete. For example, if I'm going to write active, I can see there's active view. If I want to, for example, maybe load the family, then I can use it, click on Ctrl Q in PyCharm and see some documentation how it works. But if you're going to remove this, and you're going to try to, for example, doc active view, it's not going to give you any suggestions because PyCharm doesn't know what it is. Because PyCharm doesn't know what is this special variable __ Revit. But pyRevit and Revit Python show they know what it is. Therefore, definitely leave this kind of type hinting here. This one is document. Then this one is the class of UI document. And this one is the type of application. You'll also notice this one highlighted. This is because we not reference these classes, because we have to import them, and one comes from Autodesk Revit UI, import UI document, and the other comes from Autodesk Revit, I think application services, import application. Yeah, something like this. You'll have to import them as well. And listen, this one you don't really need because you don't use app that often. I just like to have it here. But UI doc, if you want to have type hinting, definitely import it. If you don't want to type hinting, then you can remove it. But I would just leave it because for beginners, it's amazing. Now, then you'll notice that I have some blocks like functions and main, and these are the blocks that I personally use. I haven't seen any other programmers use these kind of blocks because normally majority of people, they create a comment, write their variables, and maybe they make some dashes. I also use this once in a while, but I also use the emojis then. To make emojis, you click on the start key, which makes this kind of start appear, and together with a dot. And then you're going to find various emojis you can choose from. But if you want to make these blocks, this is called ASCII art, and you need a special plugin, and it's both available in PyCharm and in Visual Studio Code. Personally, I find them very useful on large scripts, but on the smaller ones, they actually take quite a lot of space. But if you want to learn how to do them, click here on the file, then scroll down to the settings. And then we need to open plugins right here. In Marketplace, look for the plugin called Figlet. It looks like this. And just click on install it. I already installed it, and you can see in there's like preview of what it is. Now, to use it in PyCharm, we would create a comment like this. I would write here something like new comment, select this text, and then you have to hold Alt and click on Insert key. You'll see this menu, and you can select ASCII art. Then you would also have to define the font, because you will notice that there are a lot of different fonts for this ASCII art. The one that I use, you would have to click on more, and then scroll here until we can see here somewhere Kelvin. And right there is Kelvin S. This is the font that I use for these special blocks. I haven't seen anyone except me using it, and if you like them, you're welcome to use it as well. But if not, regular comments is fine. It's just whatever is your preference. And yeah, that's pretty much it about minimum template. We have our name and description, we have the most common imports we use, and we keep here the variables that we need for Revit API. I highly recommend you to use the type hinting for the document and maybe UI document. For the application, you don't need the type hinting. And then if you work in large scripts, consider making functions, main, and so on, so you can kind of separate your code visually with these blocks. Listen, this template is going to be more than enough for majority of you, and just adjust it to your own needs. But also, it's really good to know that pyRevit provides a few meta tags that you might be interested in. In this example, you can see all about them. In there, you can see you can provide the author, you can provide help URL. And let's actually open this anatomy of Iron Python that I showed you earlier. I'm going to put it here on the side. And listen, we're going to scroll through and just go through them very quick. Help URL is really useful because you can hover over any button, click on F1, and it's going to open whatever URL or path to a special file. For example, if you have a button and you have a PDF on how to use special script, and users can hover, click on F1, and they're going to open either the PDF or YouTube video that you provide here. Then the next one is highlight, and if you scroll here, you'll see that we can either highlight elements as new or updated. I'm just gonna add this kind of orange dot in the corner, and when you hover over, you're also gonna see in the tooltip whether it's new or updated. It might be good to direct a little bit more attention to new buttons. Then the next one, we can limit our minimum and maximum Revit version. And it's useful when we have Revit API limitations. For example, we couldn't create ceilings before Revit 2022. I know it sounds stupid, but that was the case. Therefore, we could define here that the minimum version is 2022 and the maximum is 2025, or maybe we just remove it all together. So we allow all versions after that. This way, the button is going to be shown in 22 and higher versions, and in Revit 2021, it's not going to be shown at all. Then you have context, and this is something special. I can see it right here as well, context, and it also has its own kind of bundle context with the description. This context allows you to set some criteria what should happen before your button can be executed. Let me show you what it means. We're just gonna go to one of the buttons in Revit. For example, let's open this push button. Let's open the script. And somewhere here, we're gonna create context. I'm gonna write selection. As you can see, it's in here, selection. You also notice that all of the syntax in the YAML format, and this is for the Bundle.yaml file. I'm gonna explain it in just a second. Let me just explain the context first. So I put here selection, which is one of the special kind of keywords. And then in Revit, I'm gonna reload my pyRevit, so all the changes happen to this button. And then have a look. When I'm gonna go here, you can see push button is grayed out, and I cannot really click on it no matter how hard I try. But if, for example, I'm gonna select a wall and go back there, now I can click on this button. So with this selection, you can define what kind of elements have to be selected, if anything have to be selected, maybe you have to be on a special view, and you can read more about it in the bundle context. You go to developers documentation, let me make it bigger, then you scroll down and right here is the bundle context. So inside you can see, you can provide some category, you can provide multiple categories, you can provide selection, zero doc. Here you can provide what kind of document it's made for, is it project, workshare, cloud, family, what kind of active view you need to provide, active drafting view, plan, sheet, whatever you want. And then there's also advanced one where you can combine any, all, and so on. And you can see that all the syntax is actually made for Bundle.yaml file. To use that, we're gonna come to wherever your button is placed, and we need to create a new file right here. I'm gonna click on new. Then let's create some kind of text document. I'm gonna write Bundle.yaml. Just make sure you change the file format, and if you don't see this, click here in the view, show, and you can show the file name extensions to change it. Inside, I'm just gonna drop it like it is and click on save. Also keep in mind that in here you can provide more than just the context. You can also put here the name of the button, the description of the button, and it might be useful only if you want to provide it in multiple languages. But honestly, I never use it myself. For example, here, when I click on bundle metadata, you can see here's an example, and this is what we could add inside. Here's how we would add here a title, or maybe title in multiple language, the description, the highlight, and so on, so on, so on. You can add much more than just the context. But honestly, I never use the Bundle.yaml file, and I don't recommend to any beginners, because I find it much nicer if you have all the meta tags right here. For example, in this file, you have them all here. And this is very quick and easy to find and change them if you need to. But with Bundle.yaml, you have to come here and open another file. Now, context. Alright, also, before we're gonna go further, remove context from the file, because now we have it in the file and in the bundle. We just want to have it in the bundle. Now, we're gonna go to pyRevit and reload it. And while it's reloading, let's have a look. What did we set? We said that it has to be active floor plan, and we have to have selection either walls or floors. We're gonna see if it works. Now, I actually got some kind of error. I'm not sure why it happens. But honestly, I never use the Bundle.yaml file for my scripts, because I don't like separate these meta tags from the script. And also sometimes you're gonna get some kind of errors if you're gonna misspell it, like I show you right now. Errors reading metadata file. I also may be doing it wrong, but honestly, I don't recommend it to any beginners. Yes, you can limit the button access depending on what's selected, but I find it so much better if users click on the button, and if they don't have anything selected, I just make a kind of pop-up menu saying, hey, you have to select the wall to do X, Y, and Z. Or maybe if they don't have anything selected, I'm just gonna prompt them to select something and write, hey, select walls now. Instead of just disabling the button and they don't know why it's disabled, how to activate it, because they cannot really even hover over it. As you can see in here, I hover over it, okay, I get the description, but it's really confusing to see grayed out buttons and users just kind of think that, okay, probably button is disabled or whatever. Therefore, I don't really recommend to use context, I don't really recommend using Bundle.yaml files, but you are welcome to use them if you see value in them. Alright, and now you have your templates and you know about pyRevit meta tags and that they provide you additional functionality. Now you're ready to create your first Revit add-in using Revit API. And that's exactly what I will teach you in the next lesson. I'll keep that example somewhat intermediate so we can create something more fun and more useful. And then in the next modules of this course, I'll break down all Revit API concepts one by one so you can learn them without feeling overwhelmed. And I will first focus on the theory and then I'm gonna provide you how to apply this theory in practice. So I wish you happy coding and I will see you in the next lesson where we're gonna create a really cool tool together. See you there.